James Clear, Atomic Habits, he says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. The reality is I'd been sitting on this idea that so much of financial management is behavior-based. It's not that like people don't know how to add and subtract. It's not that they can't work a spreadsheet. It's, in my opinion, that people don't want to do it in the first place. You know, I want to liberate people from the stress that they face on a daily basis.
Andy Hoffman, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, Peter, man. Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to connect after all the, messages inside the community.
So, Andy, you've made quite the shift in your business from kind of the traditional financial advisory route to now almost like a personal finance coaching program. But talk to me, what do you think was the biggest shift, or maybe the biggest change for you as you've made that journey from the very, very traditional path to kind of the like magic internet money, like Instagram bro?
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, in a word, like the right marketing solution, I think is it. I mean, for me, hiring a coach, like I can talk a little bit more about my backstory, but right before we hit record, I said I wasted like 2 years of my life just like, on LinkedIn, basically, just like creating content that I thought was valuable. It would get some comments, and I was kind of slowly growing an audience. But it was just kind of pissing in the wind for a couple of years because like I'd, message people and no one was really interested. And, I would get sprayed and prayed by so many other financial advisors. Which hilarious to me. It's like, dude, I'm in the industry. Why are you trying to hit me up? It's like, are you even paying any attention at all? Are you just
I get the same thing with marketing guys.
Yeah. Oh man, gosh. I mean, I get copywriters every day, video editors every day on IG. Yeah. That's the name of the game, unfortunately. So.
Oh man. Is that kind of the traditional advice for financial advisors? Like, post on LinkedIn, you'll get clients.
I feel like cutting edge advice for advisors is post on LinkedIn, get clients, which is like laughable because, and I worked,
That's cutting edge.
It is. At least a couple of years ago, it's been, I've been on my own for maybe a year and a half, something like that. But before that, I was just a quick like career backstory. I started out as a financial advisor like 10 years ago. What realized I was at like a rinky-dink firm, and so I switched firms thinking that was going to get me over the hump in building my book of business and making living commission only, right? Or like no salary is probably a better way to say it because there's obviously a commission business, fee-based business, etc. Switched firms that did not get me where I wanted to go. Ended up taking a salary gig at a large insurance company that everyone here's heard of, selling annuities to financial advisors. Then went to recruit financial advisors for several years. Ended up as a chief experience officer at a boutique financial planning firm, and just kind of all the while, being around, at least in the business development world, about like how are financial advisors doing this. I did a little stint in consulting as well, and I mean, it's really like if you're a brand new advisor, it's like get the top 100, right? All of your friends and family, everyone you've ever had a conversation with that's in your phone, and hit them up and tell them that, hey, I just got licensed and now I should be your financial advisor. And you should probably buy some life insurance, while we're talking. So like, it's painful. It's super painful. And it's hard. Like, I've been on both ends of the spectrum. And then, again, I was a recruiter at the largest independent broker dealer. So you can go Google that if you really want to know who that is, or look at my LinkedIn profile. And like, it was cutting edge when I was there of like, oh, we can say whatever we want on LinkedIn. Like we have like live compliance that you can respond to market things as they happen. Like it was this huge big deal because plenty of other financial advisors that I recruit away from, they literally were not allowed to click the like button on any post because that would be seen as an endorsement. The financial industry is like a dinosaur. Gosh. Yeah. It's finally coming along, but like if they knew what you and I know, it would be a different world for these people.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So what was the business model like at that first firm that when you started as a financial advisor? Because I know there's like different ways they charge, different, products or services they offer. Like what did that look like?
Yeah. So again, a touch of backstory to make it worth it. Like I grew up in a family that didn't do any planning at all, any financial stuff. And so it was, I joined the Coast Guard because like I didn't go to college. I was too busy playing drums. I was going to, move to Nashville and make it. And then no one else wanted to nut up and join me. So I was like, I've got to get a job now. So I joined the Coast Guard literally because I needed a job. I got a $4,000 bonus, quickly pissed it away. at 21 years old. And I'm like, oh, I'm a really smart guy. I'm going to go to the bookstore and buy a book and learn how to manage my money. And so I bought Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that like blew my mind and sent me down the nerdery rabbit hole for like the next 15. I mean, today, like I'm just constantly consuming this information. And so I was fortunate to, get my foot in the door after getting out of the Coast Guard. I got a sales job. I ended up kind of getting in the industry because my buddy was a financial advisor at this, rinky-dink firm. And he said, "Hey, well, maybe I can get you in front of my manager to sell your office coffee solution."
Why'd you put the air quotes around financial advisor?
Oh man, it's just, and again, like I love this dude. We're friends to this day. He's I almost recruited him years later to the other firm. I just missed him. He went to another firm within the bigger firm. It's very confusing. But yeah, I just didn't know any better. I had so much imposter syndrome because I didn't have a college degree, and I thought, who is going to hire me? Is there any viable job I can get, without a college degree in finance? And so he got me in the foot in the door. I'm literally selling office coffee solution. So literally like, hey, we'll bring a Keurig into your office. We'll, bring a batch brewer and we'll provide the coffee and we'll clean it out for you. Like that's literally what I'm pitching this dude's manager. And she said, have you ever considered a career in financial services? And I thought, my ship has come in. I thought this was like literally a golden opportunity. And wherein like, if I zoomed out for 30 seconds, I'd see like, why are all the desks mismatched? And like we don't bring clients into the office. Why are we driving all over North and South Carolina to see these people? And then you find out like, you just, I didn't know any better. And, we're manufacturing our own products. Not that in and of itself is like the worst thing ever, but it's like, hey, that's all we can sell. And so to your point, like it wasn't fee-based, which is kind of the de facto standard nowadays. It was commission-based. Mm-hmm. So Class A mutual fund, so 5.75% front-end load for the product to buy the mutual fund from me, and then an ongoing fee. I can't remember what the fees were off the top of my head. But then we had agreements with some other big fund providers like American Funds, Franklin Templeton, but we got zero training on them. And we manufactured our own life insurance. And so most advisors don't know what I'm about to say. There's a number called a Comdex rating, which is the strength of a financial company, 100 being the best, like USAA is a 100, MetLife is a 96, et cetera. And the company is no longer around, so I'm going to say their name because they got bought out by some other companies. First Investors Life was a 57. Yeah, that stung to find out. That's not even a
passing grade.
Right. So, again, integrity is my life. Like that's incredibly important to me. Like I give a shit about people and I want to see people prosper and do well financially. That's why I got into the industry in the first place. So that felt like I had the rug pulled out from under me, and I'm, cold calling my ass off, smiling and dialing, driving all over North and South Carolina, making, working 70 hours a week. I remember having a pair of wingtips that like had a hole in the bottom, and I couldn't afford to get them resold. So like on rainy days, my right sock would get wet. Like that's the quality of life I was living at that point. Like I was just grinding, trying to put food on the table. My wife went straight commission at the same time. Bad idea in retrospect. And so anyway, so I'm like having these epiphanies of like, I don't know that this is the best place for me to be. And on my 30th birthday, I read a book there's a guy, Rick Edelman. He's a big financial advisor in the space. I think it's called something like The Magic of Retirement Planning and IRA, some cheesy generic title like that. But like I learned about index funds for the first time, and it kind of blew my mind because I'm in this whole area of like selling the commission. Our funds perform really well, blah 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 blah. But most people hearing this will hopefully know that 80% of the time active management funds fail to beat the benchmark, and oh by the way, you're going to get charged a lot of fees on top of that. And so that was a big eye-opening moment that like, what else don't I know? And that kind of sent me on the journey to just increase my education around all this, find a better firm, and just set me on another leg of the journey.
Yeah, no, this is something that like people talk about like in business broadly too, is like you can work your ass off, but if you're working your ass off on the wrong vehicle, then you're never going to make it, right? Like, and that seems to be like exactly what you were learning at this point, where you were at this company where you just didn't have a good product to sell, and so you're working your butt off just trying to like, push this thing on people, and then come to learn that, there's way better products that I could be
I'm trying to serve them, not realizing that I'm inadvertently pushing it on them. Just
yeah, right.
Just really yeah, and it's funny, dude, because the funny thing is I would like lose out to these other clients that would be getting charged a 1% fee by their advisor. And theoretically, depending on how you slice it, a front end load can pay off in the long term, depending on market conditions and how much people are investing and all this stuff. If people are setting it and forgetting it, but it's like you hear the story about. I think it was maybe Burger King that was going to compete with McDonald's on the quarter pounder, and they came out with a third pounder burger. But like society was so dumb that they were like, "Wait a minute, it's a third pound. That's less meat." Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. No, I heard that story.
okay, yeah, and not in the best telling of it, unfortunately, on my end. But yeah, it's like people just don't know what they don't know, and it can be really tough to. It's an uphill battle. Again, with crappier products, not the luxurious office space to bring the clients to, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera.
So you left the like rinky-dink firm. You moved on to another firm at this point, right?
Yeah, hmm yeah.
So
absolutely.
what was the situation at this firm, and like was it like so much better, or was it kind of the same story over again?
Yeah, it was so much better in the sense of like, and so the irony is like there's different levels of, you could argue, conflict of interest. So as an example, this other firm was owned by a life insurance company as well. There are 4 life insurance companies that are kind of owned by the members of the life insurance. And so this is one of those. So definitely more reputable, stronger products, like non-embarrassing office environment. A lot of people working there. It was like a much better kind of quality of life situation. However, still 100% commission. I think maybe I had a small draw, but I just wasn't able to get over the hump and build a book of business because I basically had to start my whole business over because I was under a 1-year non-compete. And so everything I did for the last year, unless people reached out to me, I couldn't bring them over to the firm. So that was a big uphill battle. That and just like, it's hard, building a book as a financial advisor from scratch is super, super, super hard. And I think it's like 85-90% of people fail. So, they don't like blast that obviously in the interview process. So I was there for about a year trying to make it. I mean, I remember when the last sale fell through and I had to like make the decision to go get it, a 9 to 5, which I loathe because like being on this side of the fence now, like I realize, okay, I'm made to be an entrepreneur. Like I just want my freedom. I want to work whenever you see this post on Instagram. It's like, if you raise your hand, if you'd much rather work 80 hours for yourself than 40 hours for someone else. And it's like, check.
Yeah, no, the more you describe like this kind of like traditional financial planning route, it reminds me of when I was in college, I would get these letters in the mail from this company that like sold Cutco knives, and they'd recruit
Vector marketing, baby.
Yes,
Been there,
sir.
done that.
Vector marketing. So they'd recruit these like 17, 18, 19-year-old kids to like, go around with a set of demo knives and like go door to door and sell Cutco knives to people. And by the time I got around to it, it was actually like virtual, so it was way worse because I was like having to try to sell them these knives. Well, I don't have a physical set of knives with me, and I'm not in the same room as them. So I'm like showing them videos of the scissors cutting through the penny, and showing them videos of like, look how easy it is to cut a tomato. It doesn't squish.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing.
But it's like the model here is reminding me of that. And maybe that's just the world of commission only sales. But it's so interesting the parallels there.
Yeah, and fun fact, I did sell one Homemaker Plus 8 to my neighbor Sandra Deweese, and then I think I quit Cutco.
Yeah, I sold one to my grandparents, and then after that, nobody else bought anything. And I was like, okay.
I'm a little bitter that my sister has like some of my demo knives still, like the spatula spreader that I still covet. And I'm like, one day I'm like, when my ship really comes in, then I'm going to show everybody and buy the Homemaker Plus 8,
Yeah. Yes, sir. Okay, so you're at this second firm. Things are a lot better there. Like, what prompted you then to, because obviously you ended up leaving this second firm too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely leaving because like I could not feed my family. So my wife and I, so when we were at the first firm, so this is crazy. This gets into a little bit of my personal story and like some of my own financial planning realizations, if you will. Like I'm trying to get my act together. I'm trying to do like the Dave Ramsey pay cash for cars. 10 days before we got married, both of our cars died on the same day. Same tow truck driver. And so we had to take a rental car down to our wedding in Florida 10 days later. 2 years later, and so this is at the first firm when this initially happens. And then I switch firms, and then 2 years later, the same thing happens. 2 cars die on the same day. I think one day apart. We recently hit the anniversary because I remember it was on Fat Tuesday, which is, when Mardi Gras starts. And my wife said, the last time something like this happened, something really good happened, we got married. Maybe I'm pregnant. And that's when we found out we were pregnant with our first son the day that both of our cars died for the second time. So I say
Wow.
this to say, like, there were a lot of contributing factors. You know, she had like a 9 to 5. She ended up going all in on her kind of side hustle, and we were both just straight commission. And so, literally, just being able to put food on the table was the reason I had to leave and didn't make it the second time as a failed financial advisor. And so that was like, all right, I guess I'm going to go be a wholesaler, whatever that means, and sell annuities to financial advisors. You know, for like all these different annuity companies have like their niche product. And so I went to one of the big ones that happens to be in Charlotte. There's a ton of financial services opportunities. So got hired thinking I'm going to light the world on fire on the annuity sales desk and realizing, oh, but wait, I forget that I hate making cold calls. And so that was my life. And just like corporate micromanagement, my big personality was not flying. And so thank God I got hit up by a recruiter to go recruit financial advisors. And that was a lot better. Still cold calling, still kind of doing the same old process. And just like, I live for efficiency. Like that's a big part of my personality and just like natural inclination. And so, you know, when I was in the Coast Guard, it's like you would hear about these guys being on a boat, like attached to a boat, and to like look busy, they would literally just hold a clipboard and like walk around the boat and say that they were going to look for XYZ like higher up to run something by them. You know, like just just like you're not incentivized to do anything well in the military from my experience. Again, love my time in the military, like I would not be where I am without it. But from an efficiency standpoint, they're typically not known for that, right? Similarly, corporate America, it's like, oh, you're doing a great job. Here's more work. So, man, yeah, a lot of baggage, I think, from my time in corporate.
Yeah. If you back up to like your previous two firms before selling the annuities or before recruiting, like how were you getting clients then? Were you cold calling then too?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's like cold calling, networking. So
What does networking mean?
networking is a third party event venue or like restaurant or somebody else is in dire need of business. And so they open up their doors to a zero or low fee to a handful of people of different business walks of life. And then they all get in a room and hand each other business cards. Is like the real version of what networking actually is. Yeah, it's crazy when you like think about it. And so, you know, there's websites like meetup.com, which is great if you want to like, you know, find people to play disc golf with or, you know, go on a brewery run club or something like that. Like great. But there are all these like networking events where people are like, there's a lot of network marketing, no shade on anybody that's doing that. If it's working for you, great. But there's a lot of people that are just kind of just trying to get their feet off the ground in business, and so they all just kind of get in a room and hand each other business cards is really what happens. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can make great relationships. You can find people like if you're a financial advisor and you come across an accountant that's like trying to grow their book of business, that can be a great referral relationship. There are good things that come with it, but I remember there's one, like you've heard of maybe BNI before. So there's one like that that I was the president of. It's literally called, I'm not making this up. Apparently they were a precursor to BNI for the record, but they're literally called LATIP is the name of the organization. I'm not making that up. And so I was like the, you know, president of my like local chapter, just LATIP. And, you know, we'd have lunch every week. And like, I don't know that I ever got any clients from it. I was there for like a year, you know, and you do your 30-second commercial in front of everybody and then have lunch. And like, you know, had a suit on, which is, you know, great, whatever. But like no business was being had as far as I was concerned. So I would occasionally go to a networking event, occasionally, you know, get a couple business cards that were decent leads, follow up with them, you know, religiously, and maybe land a client or two. But like, it was just not enough to get me over the hump to have a successful financial planning process or practice.
Yeah, it seems like these in-person networking events, they just tend to attract the rookies, right? Because like if you're already killing it, like you don't have time for that kind of thing.
Correct. Well said. Yeah, well said. And occasionally, like the local chamber of commerce would put on an event or something like that, and so you know it could be an opportunity. But it's like I think people that have been in the game for any period of time are like pretty wise to like, oh, here comes the junior financial advisors looking for business. You know, can spot them a mile away.
Yeah, no, there's this one restaurant by me where if you go there at lunchtime on Thursday, there's all the local realtors having lunch together, like in the big corner booth.
Nice.
We like to make fun of them, but
yeah,
no shade on realtors, just these guys specifically.
no shade, no shade. That's awesome.
Okay, so you get recruited by a recruiter to go recruiting. which sounds a lot like the coaches who coach coaches on how to coach coaches. Talk to me
Exactly.
about your experience there. What was that like?
Good initially. A lot more, corporate freedom, if you will. Like it was just a little more of a relaxed environment where I didn't feel like I was getting micromanaged as much. Until I think some D-bag coworker ratted me out to management that I was a distraction at one point. So that chapped my ass, as you might imagine. Because like, I remember being just real quick at the previous selling annuities. Like I remember being in onboarding, and it's like total corporate propaganda, like rah rah, like let's talk about how amazing we are for 2 days,
Hmm.
and diversity training or whatever. And I just was like yucking it up, like just having like being the class clown. Then we went into 8 weeks of training on annuities, and I'm just like having the time of my life, just like making jokes, me and having fun. And then we get on the desk, and it's like, how many calls have you taken? Like it's just like, oh shit, what have I gotten myself into? And so going back to the other job, going back to recruiting, like it was a little less like that. It was a little more realistic, and
Hmm.
we're having a good time. And I was making progress. The sales cycle for recruiting is way longer than selling like a product to a financial advisor that might have some business to do, because you could be calling on the same guy for a year, dodging
Yeah.
the gatekeepers and all that stuff. But the first year, I did like 110% of our goal. So in this world of like wholesaling and recruiting, there's typically like an internal person. That was me, flying the desk. And then I've got a counterpart that lives in the field that's like going and meeting with these advisors and taking them out to lunch and wining and dining them or whatever. And so that was my career goal, my aspiration to get to that level. So while I'm recruiting in this job for 2 years, going pretty well, like enjoying it, feeling like there's some actual opportunity here. Because when I took the last job, they were like, "Oh, we're really grown, we're promoting," and then that company got cut in half, and they promoted like 3 people in the year and a half I was there, out of the 100 that were cranking out the cold calls. And Pizza Friday, great work everybody, we hit a whole new record. Here's Pizza Friday, which is brutal.
Yeah.
So recruiting was a little bit better than that. And then in year two, I did 115% of goal. And so I did a little bit of traveling with my partner in the field. We covered New Orleans, so that was fun. We did a little more travel to San Diego, where the corporate office was, and had a good time in general until I got laid off. So that was kind of a big surprise to me. Again, 110% of goal, 115% of goal, thinking I'm doing everything right. I don't know. It's possible that my abuse of the unlimited PTO policy was a contributing factor in hindsight, because I think I got like 30 days under the belt. So that might have been a contributing factor, but
But
I
it's
know that
unlimited,
myself.
Andy.
What's that? It's
It's
unlimited.
unlimited.
That's what they told me. It's unlimited.
Never showed
So
up to work again.
exactly, like it's like why go to class if I can just take the test and pass, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Apparently not the same thing, come to find out. And so they were pairing up, like they hired some new guy, upper management that everybody hated, and he basically paired all the people up. So it was like a one-on-one relationship. I had my guy that lived in New Orleans. We had a great relationship. We were getting it done. And then they started pairing one of us with 2 people out in the field. And so now we had to manage 2 territories. Myself and one other person were the only one that didn't get paired up. I didn't see the writing on the wall. And coming into the beginning of the year, I get the axe. And
Hmm.
so that was a bit of a wake up call. I found another
And
firm
when was
locally.
that?
I think that was yeah, probably early 2019, I think.
Okay.
I'd have to
This
check
is
my
still
own LinkedIn.
pre-COVID.
Yeah, this is pre-COVID. So I got another job as a recruiter. Thankfully, safe landing at another firm locally that had a great relationship with the previous firm, and so we used a lot of their services. And like it was a hybrid RIA, in case anyone listening is hearing that or cares. So I was working at the broker dealer, and then I went to a hybrid RIA under the purview of the broker dealer. So started building my pipeline from scratch again, which was frustrating. Had a little more autonomy, thought that this was going to be a good place for me to, gain a little more commission. I'm doing everything kind of soup to nuts. I'm not relying on someone in the field. I'm doing the whole process remotely, which is tough. Again, recruiting is a long process. And building the pipeline up, feeling like it's a little more of a relaxed environment, which is nice. Again, I prefer more autonomy, and was getting some of that. But I was building the pipeline, and then had 2 teams that were flying in for the final meet and greet, wine and dine, to ideally sign some paperwork and come on board. two big deals for me at least, and both of them, that was 3 days before lockdown. And so they ended up canceling their flight. Obviously, my pipeline withered overnight, and I was like, pretty struggling. I was definitely struggling to like, my job is cold calling advisors, and like the world is kind of melting down for a little while, and it's like you feel like a giant asshole like calling somebody. So what do you do? And so because so much of my income was commission based, I took a pretty big pay cut as a result of that. So I ended up.
Yeah, well, like who's jumping firms in the middle of that, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like the people that were on the 1 yard line, you never hear from them again,
Yeah.
essentially. So thankfully, the owner of the company had kind of eyed me. They were expanding their consulting arm, and so he ended up offering me an opportunity there. So usually it would be a pay cut to take a role like that, which is frustrating because I think sometimes we all are wrestling with the financial opportunities that present themselves to us career wise, but also the like life-giving purpose, all that stuff too can kind of be hard to pick between the two, right? And so I realized the consulting part of it was really enjoyable, so I did say yes, and at the same time I had gotten an offer out of the blue to get recruited in another firm locally, which would be even more autonomy, even more money. And I was really loving for like a month and a half the consulting that I was doing and like making a difference in these advisors' lives and helping them like create more efficiencies, which again is like a big part of my personality. Felt like a lot of alignment there. And I don't know if it's foolish or not, but I took the recruiting job and it was like I let my accidentally, I didn't intentionally let it lapse, but my life license lapsed at some point. Again, I'll take responsibility for that. So I have to like re-get my life license while I'm trying to build the third pipeline as a recruiter from scratch in a new channel with, again, this company is a life insurance firm, this new firm I'm recruiting for, and they want to create this like RIA wing. And so talk about an upsell, talk about it like a tough battle to fight of like, hey, I know you want to be an independent RIA only advisor. You should work for our insurance company, right? I think that's a little bit of a hard play. So all that
Yeah.
to say, I was not spraying and praying as much as I should, smiling and dialing, and I got let go from that job. So that was a big awakening. That was a big awakening for me. And I'm like, what the hell happened? I thought this was my, dream job. I'm getting more and more and more autonomy work-wise, feeling like I'm headed in the right direction. And I know you're a man of faith as well. And so that's when I was just like, all right, God, what do I need to do? Like I give up. I'm thrown, not give up, but like I give my ambition and my desires over to you. Big time watershed moment in my life where I'm like, I'm not just going to go brush up my resume and go grab a coffee with anyone that'll have coffee with me, to try to find the next gig. Like I'm kind of done with this. And so, thankfully that was a great decision and has kind of paved a lot of my spiritual life, even moving forward to this day, for the trajectory that I'm on now. But that opened the door. There was an advisor I connected with when I was at the previous firm doing the recruiting and consulting. And we ended up, having a lot of lunches together, and he ended up taking me on to do kind of the chief experience officer role where I was kind of helping them build the brand. My first foray into actually doing some sort of content creation professionally, because I, as a recruiter, was starting to do the LinkedIn content creation as a way to like build a little bit of a name for myself as a recruiter, as another way to like drip on people. And doing this professionally for a firm was like really exciting. I mean, we were doing a lot more like long form blogging, and it's like maybe not the greatest time on the internet space to like start digging into SEO for a quick win, right? So that was a bit of a rude awakening. So I'm kind of starting to do a little more of this content creation, quasi professionally now. Starting to do some YouTube work, starting to do some content, right? That's a big part of what I was doing. And then, the market took a dump. I guess this was, 2022, in the spring of 2022. And so just being that they were an AUM based firm, everything's derived from their assets. I think they were managing about 120 in assets, and then basically effectively getting cut in half. So I get the axe, from that job.
Wow.
Yeah, that was super frustrating. So at that point, I'm just kind of like, God, what are you doing? What I thought that, I thought this was it. Like I was going to kind of climb the ladder with these guys, and I really loved all their philosophy and their investment planning analysis and all this kind of stuff. And unfortunately, fortunately, I should say, the Lord had other plans, as I like to tell people. So so this is where it gets crazy. Like right outside this window right here, we lived in a house for 4 years. We were going to pull a home equity line of credit, do some renovations, struggle to get the financing together. And then we ended up deciding to sell the house because the market was really hot. And we had a little Airbnb, my wife and I. She's an interior designer. And so we were going to go all in on Airbnb, like as a side hustle while I'm, the chief experience officer or whatever. And then I got let go. And so we're sitting on some equity from this house. And I had like drawn this kind of methodology of how I can help people automate their finances at this time. I've been sitting on this idea for like 5 years, experimented a little bit with like friends and family members. And I'm like, all right, this is my opportunity. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity for me to go all in on this idea.
What inspired you to create that?
My own ups, essentially, feeling like I had so much head knowledge about financial planning. Like I just like gobble up all that I can between being in the industry as like, a licensed person, but also just like reading the blogosphere for years and years and years. Like I remember being in the Coast Guard and reading like blogs like Get Rich Slowly or, discovering years later, Mr. Money Mustache, and all these other kind of niche, Mad Scientist, et cetera, niche finance blogs, and just like really struggling with understanding like that this is possible for normal people to do in some way, shape, or form. Just feeling like this. I remember reading like the 4-Hour Work Week as an example, and just feeling like a caged animal, that like I'm doing work that feels valueless. I'm, working really hard for this like corporate machine and struggling with all of that, and knowing that I wanted to do something on my own, not being sure what that is. And so all these things kind of combined for me to be able to take the risk, if you will, to do my own methodology. So again, to answer your real question, I just struggled to put the money away. I struggled to like invest and save as much as I wanted to. Like I struggled with like, hey, I'm trying to live frugally. I'm trying to do all these things like Dave Ramsey says I should, hypothetically, right? And then my cars keep dying, and I'm feeling like, Lord, what is going on? So, I'm getting better about having the confidence to share more and more of that story over time. But the reality is I'd been sitting on this idea that so much of financial management is behavior based. It's not that like people don't know how to add and subtract. It's not that they can't work a spreadsheet. It's, in my opinion, that people don't want to do it in the first place. And so if we can, align our financial planning notions with the fact that people want as little to do with this as possible, and how can we set a system, James Clear, Atomic Habits, he says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems, right? And so how can we design, from a financial standpoint, a plan that would work for people whether they are really paying attention or not? With the default being them not paying attention, that they have enough money to spend and not feel guilty about, that their bills get paid on time automatically, that savings and investing is happening and increasing ideally optimally in the background without them having to lift a finger. And so that has been the last decade of my life to figure that stuff out. I feel like I've made a lot of progress in that regard. And that led me to initially, for 5 months, creating a course, thinking that, oh my gosh, this is going to revolutionize everything. The course is going to light the world on fire, and man, just turning cold traffic into buyers for a course, very difficult. Come to find out. Mm-hmm. So for 5 months, I'm working my ass off, living on the equity of the home. Like we are literally living right across the street. The only rental in the neighborhood was right across the street, and we have to look at this house that was like a missed opportunity for us. And my poor wife, who is an interior designer, is just like sitting on the sidelines for a year and a half of her life while I try to figure this stuff out. So the course does okay, but it's like, am I going to have to go back and get a job? Like that was a very real fear of mine, let alone the embarrassment and shame of it all, plus like working in corporate America again, throwing the suit back on, not something I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I remember getting a DM from a guy on Instagram about like social media strategy. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I don't, whatever. Okay, sure. Like, what do I have to lose? Let's hop on a call. And I ended up hiring this dude and his business partner to be my first coach. And so I remember like being terrified to pay them $500. This is like a year ago almost, right?
Yeah.
I paid them $500. Did like $1,000 $3,000 package with them. and they got me my first $10,000 month as a coach, like right away.
Wow.
And it's crazy. Yeah, it was
What
crazy.
was the strategy?
Their strategy was getting in the DMs, but they were like more organic, that like, I mean, I wasn't running any ads. So I was just like spraying and praying and, reaching out to people on DMs. I mean, it sounds crazy. There's some people, maybe one or two locally that I knew that kind of got me my first taste of like, okay, I'm not a crazy person. This is going to work. But basically, taking the course that I'd created and helping people implement it is really what the offer is predicated on. So I've got this kind of methodology that I've created, and then now I just, people can buy the course if they want to, but the bulk of my business is now helping people implement that. So initially, I remember starting out at like a $1,500 offer. Now it's $4,500 is typically what I charge for the same offer. And instead of doing 12 1-hour meetings, it's now like 30-minute meetings moving forward. And a lot has changed over the time as I've evolved it, but it was thanks to someone selling me, if you will, and helping me have the courage to step out of my comfort zone to change my life. This has absolutely changed my life, and I've done like the Mastermind Awareness probably like my third mastermind coaching experience at this point, maybe I think fourth actually. So yeah, big fan.
Yeah, no. For context for everybody listening right now, the way Andy and I met was actually through a coach that we've both like individually hired to kind of help us with the consulting side of our business. And for me, I started out as agency owner, moved into the consulting world, and now I kind of do both. For Andy, you actually started as your own business. As just a course creator, right? And then you added this consulting wing. And it seems like this consulting offer is kind of crushing right now. Like I keep seeing in our community tab, like, another close, another close, another close. Talk to me about like, when do you feel like you started to get some momentum with the consulting and like actually helping people implement instead of just like, here's this course, just watch through the course?
Yeah, well, it's just a realization. I mean, I remember literally the guy that I paid $500 having to convince me that, like, people would much rather pay to implement it and not have to like think through all the logistics of what you're doing or even finding the right bank accounts and all of this different stuff like life insurance or whatever. And that, I was like struggling to believe him that was true in a sense. And so that's what started it for me. And then I just began to get momentum. A lot of DMs, a lot of conversations. Like thankfully I came to this field with a background in sales, from just being a financial advisor, annuities, recruiting. Like I know how to sell and have the conversation with people and help them kind of understand like all sides of the topic, right? Because obviously $4,500 is a lot of money for people, but when people realize the cost of doing nothing, that like you were on the 1-yard line, there is an opportunity right in front of you to radically transform your life. And so getting really big transformations is kind of a big part of what I do. And I'm not saying that to brag, but it's very different than the normal kind of financial planning process. It's really predicated on, helping people break the paycheck to paycheck cycle. So like 6-figure families is my target market, helping them break this paycheck to paycheck cycle through automation, but also just like the kind of behavioral finance stuff that's going on in the background through a relatively simple solution. So hopefully I'm answering your question, but it's just kind of, it evolved pretty naturally in terms of, increasing my price. But then there was definitely a season of like, I'm charging a pretty big number and my wife is like, and I'm not closing people for a while. And my wife is like, I think you need to lower your prices. I think you need to lower your prices. And, I'm coming full circle off of a week where I had 5 sales calls and closed all 5, and it's,
dude,
thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Congrats. That's insane.
Thanks. Yeah. I feel like I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it.
Why were you able to, or how were you able to close all 5? I guess I should say. Because like when it comes to high ticket sales like this, like 25 to 30% close rate is pretty dang good, and like the really talented closers in the industry, that's what they're hitting. So like, what is it that's getting your people so warmed up and so ready to buy before they ever even hop on that call with you?
Well, thanks. I mean, I really feel like what I have is differentiated. I really feel like the methodology is the mechanism, as we like to say, is the thing that's helping people get the result. I mean, obviously, I'm holding their hand through the process. I'm I mean, I hope that it comes across on the internet that like I give a shit and that like I'm not just interested in making the buck. Far from it. You know, I want to liberate people from the stress that they face on a daily basis. And so I think that that comes across in some way, shape, or form. I'm not the best creator. That is for sure. Like, I look at your stuff and it's so much crisper than mine. And like, your gear is so much nicer. And I'm like, oh man, I've got like Gear Envy with Peter. But, you know, we're getting there. We're growing and
Yeah.
it takes time to kind of level up what you're doing. But I think yeah, I think in terms of this, like, you know, candidly, I might be too big of a softy to say no to people because I've taken, like, I like to think about, right, we all know the word diversification, right? I like to think about, I don't just take people that can pay me in full. Like, there are single moms that I work with that I give them a big discount. You know, and I don't advertise that, so you know, don't like blast all your single mom friends my way necessarily. But no, I care about people and I want to give people the help. Sometimes I take a pay cut to do it. Sometimes, you know, I realize that not everyone, if I've got my like kind of implementation, like my 8 steps to where we go through and they only need, you know, 3 steps or 5 steps or whatever, then I'm not going to charge them the full package, so to
Sure.
speak. But I really set the bar high when I sell it that way. Like I say, hey, it's $5,000 typically to do this. And then I kind of might back down on, hey, you know, I noticed you've got a couple of these things. I'd love to give you a big discount. And I mean, there's so much from a selling standpoint, I think. I'm realizing I'm finally like, you know, almost a year and a half in actually tracking my metrics, which is embarrassing to say out loud. And having someone help me with that has been a game changer just because I'm just overwhelmed most days. So yeah, so like this week, people said yes, they weren't able to make a payment on the call. And so that was a zero cash collected, but I've got, you know, some commitments that some of them are starting, you know, I think I collected, I don't know, maybe 8,000, something like that this week, something like that. So a good week for sure by most measures.
$8,000 week.
I think so. I mean, don't quote me on that. I mean, can I say what, if I may, so last week was just to share a couple numbers, if it's not like too tacky to do that.
No, go for it.
So January was my highest revenue month of 28,500, and that was like a pretty big win for me. And
Yeah.
cash collected was 15,500, which is great. My highest cash collected is just under 20, and so now, with 15.5 being last month, today of the recording is February 16th, and I'm at just over 20,000 in cash collected right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So I feel like with the ad spend clicking, the funnel working, we could talk about like how big of an idiot I am in some areas, because I feel like on one hand I could have a $40,000 cash collected month this month. I don't know if that's going to happen. Obviously, we'll see what happens. Things are stacking up in a good direction, but the irony is, dude, and I feel like you get this stuff. Like I feel like you're such a better marketer than I am. Like I'm just trying.
I mean,
to put
I
one
would
foot in
hope
front of
so.
the
That's
other.
the thing I'm selling.
Yeah, for sure. But like I read all these books. Like I've read a ton of marketing books. I'm reading a Dan Kennedy book right now, and just trying to play catch up on this area that I feel like is somewhat my Achilles heel. Which means, thank God I'm hiring someone to help me with this stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's been a massive win. Otherwise, I'd be maybe in corporate America right now, genuinely.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that like when I finally started tracking the numbers, and it's like, I think I had a 32x ROAS in January, which is like absolutely
That's
nuts.
insane. Out of this world.
Insane, right? So I was like, I think I need to increase ad spend because I'm like fighting people in the DMs, like, no, you really need to trust me. Like, I know what I can. And the hardest part for me is that like when I know I can help someone and they don't get it, like I just feel for them. Like you have no idea. Like just these limiting beliefs that we all have, right? That like so many people that I save my fee and interest with my eyes closed. It's like crazy, you know? So yeah, but like that was a pretty big epiphany that like, oh, if I just turn up the dial on this ad spend like I'm doing now, I was doing
Well,
like
I
15.
remember like trying to convince you that in our like mastermind group chat. I was like, dude, like all the numbers are tracking. Like just spend more on ads.
Yeah. No, thank you. And it's because of you and some other people that have kind of gotten in my ear that I'm like, quality control is really important. This is all like scary to me, and I want to be careful that my deliverable doesn't suffer. And I think I'm just scared. You know, that's what it is. I'm scared for sure. And so I'm getting better. I'm getting braver, and figuring it out and implementing better systems and switching to Go High Level finally, which I'm
All
excited
right.
about. And by that I mean I signed up and haven't done anything since. So so hopefully this Saturday I can put some work on it and try to move some stuff over. But like again, big efficiency guy. So like I'm on one hand in heaven
Hmm.
doing all this automation stuff because I mean literally my offers predicated on financial automation. Like that's literally who I am as a person, essentially. And
Yeah.
excited to have the software back it up a little bit.
Love it. So Andy, talk to me. Kind of last question I got for you is just like, what's next? What's next for you with this financial consulting business?
I'm like, I wonder, like, Lord, is that you putting me on this podcast in front of other financial advisors? Because like, I'm scared to say this out loud. I'm really torn between how do I scale this more effectively. Like, I don't want to be saying no to people. I don't want to. I don't love the idea of having a wait list. I don't necessarily want to be increasing. Like I tell prospective clients all the time that like I've got a friend who does this very similar business model. Doesn't talk about insurance or wills or any of that stuff. Doesn't really help with debt, to be frank. And she charges $7,200 for like the
Yeah.
same thing. Not super fully automated. And so I say that to say like yes, I can increase my price. Although this dramatic buildup is to say like I'm wondering if I need to hire some help from a coaching standpoint. I wonder. I'm working 6 days a week right now, which is not the Instagram coaching dream that I've been sold. I'm just joking. I know it takes like
Shout out
right.
Grayson.
I know exactly. All these guys are in Switzerland and we're over here
Yeah.
grinding. So yeah, I don't
That's our
know.
mastermind program for those of you listening.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Genuinely, again, this isn't like Instagram bullshit. Like I'm definitely praying about it and like what's next and trying to be open to where it could go. Like I feel like I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but like the methodology is a big deal to me. And so I feel like I would love to write a book about this. I'd love to start doing speaking engagements and some of that stuff and like really, really build something,
Yeah.
pretty big.
I
Maybe
mean,
take on
clearly
some
the
big
process
names.
works, and clearly there's a
Thank you.
need for it. So you just keep building the brand, and you just keep
Yeah,
plugging along, right?
indeed.
Amazing.
Cool. Thanks,
Andy
dude.
Hoffman, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Such a pleasure, man. Great to connect with you, Peter.